On this edition, I'm going to break down and predict the upcoming fight on the UFC 153 card between Jon Fitch and Erick Silva. Now, this is a fight between longtime welterweight and considered contender in the division, Jon Fitch, against one of the young up-and-coming talents, a finisher, a guy who has a knack for finishing fights, in Erick Silva. So hopefully this fight could be entertaining, or it could very well turn into a typical Jon Fitch fight. So just going to have to see how this one pans out. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm just going to break down both fighters. I'm going to do my predictions. So I'm going to start with Jon Fitch. Now, Jon Fitch has been long time considered himself and has been considered one of the top contenders in the division, and a loss to Johny Hendricks most definitely hurt his status at being at the top of the food chain in the division. But Jon Fitch trains at American Kickboxing Academy, and his striking is really only for purpose. As Jon Fitch is not going to win fights off of just standing up and striking, especially against a fighter like Erick Silva with very good Muay Thai. But Jon Fitch's striking is purpose. He is the guy with the longer reach in this fight. He does utilize his jabs and his leg kicks, but it's always to really set up his ground game. And it's not so much that Jon Fitch is explosive and has incredible speed and footwork. He lacks the speed in this fight compared to Erick Silva, who has the athleticism and the speed. But Jon Fitch is relentless with his takedowns. He has good technique, and if he does get a hold of you, he's going to continue to try and work on that takedown. He's not going to let go of you, and eventually he's going to dump you down to the ground. He's relentless. He's relentless. His technique always pays off, and once he gets you down to the ground, he smothers you. People always joke and say that it's a blanket. Jon Fitch is a blanket on top of you, and because he doesn't work and he's not the most entertaining of fighters, just because people don't really appreciate Jon Fitch's style. Not everybody, but some people don't appreciate Jon Fitch's style. But Jon Fitch is a great wrestler. He utilizes his game. He utilizes the strengths in his game, and that's his wrestling. Now, Jon Fitch saying that he's going to go and start being an entertaining fighter and working for the finish, I'd take that with a grain of salt. I don't think Jon Fitch is going to alter his style, especially what has really brought him to be such a successful mixed martial artist in the welterweight division. So I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. So when he does get you down on the ground, he is a black belt in guerrilla jiu-jitsu. He really drags you into deep waters. He doesn't give you really any room to rest. So it's just a relentless pace that he pushes. Not the most entertaining style that people like, but it's what works for him, and it's most definitely what people can't match. Is that people cannot get out from under Jon Fitch. That's how good his wrestling is. That's how overwhelming he is. That's how good his ground control is. So in regards to Jon Fitch, is that he lacks the speed in this fight. He does have the longer reach in this fight. I don't see him submitting Erick Silva in this fight. He is a black belt in guerrilla jiu-jitsu, but I do not see him submitting Erick Silva in this fight. And he has the experience in this fight. He has experience. He's fought fighters before. He's definitely fought higher level talent than Erick Silva has. So where I see Jon Fitch being successful in this fight, I think there's no mystery in this fight, is that Jon Fitch needs to utilize his wrestling. He needs to cut off Erick Silva's movement. He needs to dump him down to the ground. If he could try and finish this fight, I don't see him TKOing or knocking out Erick Silva. I think it'd be a long shot to submit Erick Silva because he's a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. So if Jon Fitch is to be successful in this fight, it's like he always does. Get him down to the ground, utilizing his wrestling, overwhelming him with his ground control, and winning this fight via unanimous decision. So that's where I see Jon Fitch being successful. So Erick Silva, and Erick Silva is just, I'm a big believer in the hype of Erick Silva. He's such a talented fighter. He's so athletic. He's so fast. He's got a very bright future in mixed martial arts, and he's pretty well-rounded. He's not a pure wrestler. That's the biggest hole in his game against a fighter like Jon Fitch. But what he does have is good movement in the octagon, very fast, explosive footwork. He's in the pocket, he's out of the pocket, and he's got deadly hands. He's got good Muay Thai, he can utilize his kicks, he's good in the clinch with his knees. Whether he wants to utilize that against the fighter like Jon Fitch with good wrestling remains to be the biggest question. And he's got good hands, very crisp striking. He likes to work his angles, he likes to pop forward in the pocket, he keeps himself out of danger, and I think the best part is that he catches a lot of fighters coming forward at him. It's just such an impressive thing about him. He's got good defensive striking, good counter striking, he's good on the offensive and the defensive with his striking, so very well balanced. He's got good power in his hands. I think he has 3 knockouts on his resume, but it's not really significant of the power that he does possess in his hands, his legs, his knees, his elbows, but whatever he strikes, he throws at his opponent. Also, in regards to his ground game, he's got good takedown defense. I think a lot of people, if Erick Silva didn't have the fight against Charlie Brenneman, I think people would have been questioning what he's like against wrestlers, and I was thoroughly impressed with his fight with Charlie Brenneman. But the difference is Charlie Brenneman's a good wrestler, but he's not Jon Fitch. He doesn't have the wrestling capabilities of Jon Fitch. He does not have the skill set that Jon Fitch has in his wrestling game. So it's a big up in talent in regards to wrestling. Can Erick Silva's takedown defense match Jon Fitch's? That's the biggest question. That'll be, I think, his movement in the octagon and his takedown defense are the biggest factor in this fight. If it does stay standing, it's Erick Silva's game. Now, in regards to his ground game, he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a black belt in Judo. So that also does apply to his takedown defense. And when he is on his back, he actually has more submissions than he does knockouts. So very well-versed mixed martial arts. But once again, the hole in his game is the wrestling, which happens to be Jon Fitch's strongest point of his game. He does fight well in his guard. He fights well off his back. He's constantly active and throwing up strikes. So it'll be interesting to see how he fights off his back if he's to be put on his back by Jon Fitch. So regards to Erick Silva, he is at a reach disadvantage, but he's the faster, more explosive fighter in this fight. He definitely has the better striking. I'd say he's the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, but once again, the wrestling's the biggest hole in his game. So where I see Erick Silva being successful in this fight, I think there's no mystery to this one as well, is that you keep the fight standing, you try and test Jon Fitch's chin. And that's the thing, is that Erick Silva's tough. He hasn't been finished before. He hasn't been submitted. He hasn't been knocked out. Jon Fitch has been knocked out only a few times. He's been submitted once, if I'm not mistaken. So both guys are very tough to finish. So Erick Silva's really got to use his movement effectively, use the octagon to his advantage, move around, keep Jon Fitch guessing, and try and connect with that chin. If he is presented the opportunity, he's gotta press forward. He's got to finish that. He's got to finish Jon Fitch. So if Erick Silva is successful, he's got to TKO or knock out Jon Fitch. So where my prediction lies in this fight, and I've been on the fence with this one all week, up until probably about 10 minutes ago, is I really do believe the hype in Erick Silva. But, you cannot bet against Jon Fitch. Is that, it may not be the most entertaining style, but Jon Fitch's wrestling never seems to fail. It has been really just such a strong part of his game, and he's continued to use it effectively in almost every fight. So, once he cuts off Erick Silva's movement, he's going to dump him down to the ground. He's going to do it for 3 rounds. Now, Erick Silva could keep this one standing, but eventually Jon Fitch is going to find a way. He's going to cut off the movement of Silva. He's going to get a hold of him and dump him down to the ground. He's going to do it for 3 rounds. Unfortunately, it may not be the most entertaining fight, but the safe bet in this is going with Jon Fitch, the underdog, surprisingly, in betting odds. But I'm going to say Jon Fitch defeats Erick Silva via unanimous decision on the UFC 153 card. And that's what I have for this edition. It's Kyle Delaney, signing off. I'm out of here.